Surrounded by demons, skulls, and other symbols, the people who worship at the Satanic Temple in Detroit are used to being questioned and misunderstood.
We really try to provide rational insight wherever the satanic voice might benefit.
That is exactly why they're doing what they're doing, creating their own version of a holiday display to be seen on the steps of the state capitol in Lansing.
It's a poignant time, or a very important time, to remind legislators and to provide, and empower people who have perhaps beliefs that are not mainstream, that this is an opportunity at a time to have your voice be heard, and to make sure that we're all aware that this is a diverse community that we live in.
Getting to this point with the sculpture was no easy task. The artist had to follow a 50-page rule book outlined by the state before this sculpture could ever be installed in front of the Capitol. That means it had to meet certain height requirements, certain length requirements, and certain width requirements, all of which this sculpture does meet. So it will be on display soon.
It seems like they already were kind of tweaking the rules with people like us in mind.
The idea behind it is to get people talking about various types of religions and beliefs.
The holidays are always a time, or tend to be a time where families and friends come together in conversation, and that perhaps this time of year it's best to involve conversations about divergent beliefs, or about some larger context that's going on right now in America.
The display won't be welcomed by all.
This is strange. Christmas is being hijacked by Satan. I understand that there is liberty, religious freedom. You have the right to freedom of speech. But, there are limits to how rights are supposed to be exercised.
Some question the timing of the installation. Why does it have to be Christmas?
I don't think it's a coincidence that this particular group of free thinkers, atheists, Satanists have picked the Advent season, have picked the month of December, picked December 21st through the 23rd to erect a symbolic expression of their value and worship of Satan. I don't think this is a coincidence at all, and I think it's deplorable. I think that it is unseemingly, and that is really bad manners.
Would you feel the same way if it was a nativity scene or anything of that effect?
No, I think a nativity scene is appropriate during Christmas because, of course, there is a long tradition of tying Christmas to the birth of Christ.
It's Christmas. It's holidays. It's multiple people celebrate this time because we all have work off. We all have everybody visits each other, and it's a reason to celebrate. And everybody chooses different ways to celebrate that. But having one singular view, especially coming from the Capitol, promoting one singular view is extremely narrow-minded.
The people of the Satanic chapter of Detroit say they embarked on this project after hearing about a plan for a church installing a nativity scene, a plan they say has been abandoned by the church. This installation will be on display for 3 days starting the 21st. In Detroit, Dave Spencer, Fox 2 News.
לא, בסדר, דבר איתי. יופי. אחרי זה את הבדיקות של השבת. ולמעלה מצטלם הכי טוב. רגע, לא, לפה, ימינה. בואו נשאר.
الاستهداف الإسرائيلي الليلة الماضية لأحد المواقع في غزة هو تصعيد خطير، وحركة حماس تحذر الاحتلال الإسرائيلي من تكرار مثل هذه الحماقات، وتدعو المجتمع الدولي إلى تحمل مسؤولياته تجاه العدوان الإسرائيلي الأخير على غزة.
التصعيد أجى في توقيت الناس تنتظر فيه إعمار ما تم تدميره في الحرب الأخيرة، لا أن تشاهد دمارا جديدا في قطاع غزة.
The United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly approves the resolution taking a swipe at Israel. The resolution asks Tel Aviv to become a party to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, commonly known as the NPT. It also calls on Israel to put its nuclear facilities under the safeguard of the International Atomic Energy Agency. The resolution was passed by 161 yes votes. Apart from Israel, the U.S. and Canada were among the countries that voted against the measure. 18 countries also abstained. Israel is known as the only possessor of the nuclear weapons in the Middle East. However, Tel Aviv neither denies nor confirms possessing nuclear weapons.
Said yet more sanctions will be brought in against Russia. Let's get more on this with RT's Alexei Yaroshevsky, who's in New York, standing by to speak to us. Alexei, what do we know about these new sanctions introduced by President Obama, or indeed announced by President Obama, I should say?
Yes, it's the latest string of sanctions against Russia, which the U.S. president just announced a short while ago. And we understand that those sanctions are directed particularly at Crimea. Now, according to the new set of sanctions, the U.S. companies will not be able to either export their goods or technologies or services to the peninsula. And also, President Obama specified that companies and individual businessmen working in Crimea may also be sanctioned according to this new set. Now, this follows a string of turnarounds from the U.S. president and the U.S. administration, because on Wednesday, the U.S. State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki said that the new set of sanctions against Russia would be signed. Then the White House denounced such claims on Thursday, when President Obama signed a congressional bill providing help to Ukraine. He said that he would not actually sign the new set of sanctions against Russia, but now we see that there's another turnaround and another contradictory action from the U.S. president. The new set of sanctions has been signed. We're, of course, waiting to see whether there'll be any more reaction and will be any more specific about what particular companies could be affected by that.
Explaining the situation from New York for us, Alexei Yaroshevsky, thank you.
Stephen McGarvey here for ChristianHeadlines.com. We're talking today with one of our columnists, James Tonkowich, who is the author of the new book, The Liberty Threat: The Attack on Religious Freedom in America Today.
Fundamentally, there is a really deep change that has taken place. As Christians, we believe that there is truth and that we can know truth, that God reveals his truth through the natural order, in the natural law, or perhaps we would call it common grace. God reveals his truth in the scriptures. So there is truth and we can know truth. Well, the trajectory of modern philosophy, beginning really with Descartes, although Descartes thought he could know truth, but starting with "I think, therefore I am," he couldn't get there. And you've had this erosion within philosophy and then within the popular understanding of things, where the great sin is to claim that you can know truth. It's the great evil of the age. It's what people use to oppress others, is this claim that we can know the truth. Well, once you've gotten there, any religion that claims to know the truth becomes the enemy.
Now, in your book, you talk about religious liberty as a Christian idea that's not necessarily just for Christians. Can you expand on that and tell us what you mean by that?
Sure. In the ancient world, there was no religious liberty. And we read in the book of Daniel that Nebuchadnezzar put up a statue, and when the bells and the horns and the bagpipes and the Paul Reed Smith electric guitars and everything else started playing, you bowed down. And you had a choice. You didn't have to bow down, but if you didn't bow down, you'd be thrown into the fiery furnace. And he wasn't kidding. And of course, that's the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That was the way religious life worked in the ancient world, in Babylon, in Canaan, in Israel, in the Roman Empire, where the Christians found themselves. You could add to the national religion. You could add other gods, many in the Roman army who, burned incense or poured out wine to Jupiter and Caesar and the other gods, Caesar, of course, being the divine Caesar. also were part of the Mithras cult, or were Christians as well. Or you could add gods, but there was a minimum, and that was set by the state. Religion was considered central to family life, to the unity of family life, to the unity of clan, to the unity of empire. And so not to participate in religion was considered treasonous. Well, along come the Christians, and they don't want to burn incense to the Roman gods, and certainly not to Caesar, who was just a man pretending to be a god. And in the 3rd century, the Christian apologist Tertullian, writing to the Roman governor who was persecuting Christians, said, look, freedom of religion, freedom to choose who to worship, who not to worship, is inherent to human nature. It belongs to us because we are human. It precedes the state. It precedes the demands of the state or even the family. This idea of religious liberty was a Christian idea from the very beginning. Now, what's important about that is that religious liberty is our first freedom. If I say to you, Steve, run the Salem websites any way you like, freedom of speech, say anything you want. But if it's religious stuff, you have to curb that. Well, what kind of freedom of speech is that? If I say, well, you can petition the government, as the First Amendment says you can, but if your ideas for petitioning the government are rooted in religious belief, nope, can't do that. Well, what kind of freedom is that? And so you really do have a situation where this is our first freedom, and it is also the canary in the coal mine. If you look back in history, the history of the French Revolution, history of the Mexican Revolution, the history of the Spanish Revolution, communist era, the Nazi era, religious freedom is the first one that goes, and all the other freedoms that we enjoy collapse along with it.